Imagine a mother's pride, stepping into a world of wealth and power, only to be crushed in a single moment. This is the story of Gloria Samuels, and the son who turned a $900 million deal to dust to defend her honor. Stay tuned to Real Stories Diary, because you won't believe what happens next. Gloria Samuels stepped out of the black Lincoln Navigator, clutching her leather purse with both hands. She didn't wear labels, but everything about her said quality. Clean lines, pressed seams, and dignity in every step. Her hat was white, wide-brimmed with a ribbon that matched her shoes, a church hat, the kind her late husband always complimented her on. Greenwich Country Club sat quiet under a cloudless sky. Derek, her son, told her this lunch would be low-key. "Just come, Ma." No big speeches, just a quiet toast after the signing. She was proud of him, of what he'd built, a logistics empire from one warehouse in Trenton to a nationwide supply chain infrastructure. And today, it was about to become part of something much larger, the Hathaway Group. Old money, deep roots. But Gloria didn't care about all that. She came to support her son. She came because he asked. She barely made it past the marble steps before a woman in a navy blue uniform stepped in front of her, blocking her path. "Excuse me," the woman said, no smile. "Deliveries and staff use the back entrance." Gloria tilted her head, confused. "I'm here for lunch with my son, Derek Samuels." The woman didn't blink. "Yes, well, if you're with staff or catering, it's policy. The rear access is on the left." Gloria blinked slowly. It wasn't the first time someone assumed, but it never stopped stinging. "I'm not staff. I'm a guest." And right then, across the patio, Derek Samuels saw it all unfold. What he did next shocked everyone, and it's why this story is blowing up everywhere. Keep listening to Real Stories Diary to find out how one moment changed everything. From across the patio, Derek had just raised his glass. His eyes scanned the lawn, found his mother, and noticed the uniformed woman's posture. Something tightened in his chest. Gloria took a breath, trying to stay composed. "You can check the list. My name is Gloria Samuels. My son is one of the owners meeting here today." Before the woman could respond, a crisp voice sliced through the conversation like glass dragging across tile. "Well, I suppose they let anyone in these days," said Victoria Hathaway, her pearls resting heavily against her blouse. "Are we letting the cleaning staff dine with us now?" Several heads turned. One man chuckled under his breath. Derek's jaw shifted. He was mid-toast, still holding the champagne flute, but his smile had vanished. He set the glass down slowly. His colleagues noticed the change in his expression. One of the Hathaway sons, Bradley, the youngest, gave a nervous laugh and said she was probably joking. But Derek didn't hear him. He was already moving. Gloria looked up, her face still calm, but her hands clenched tighter around her bag. Victoria was already walking off, giving no further thought to what she'd said. Just another day for her. Derek walked straight to his mother, placed a hand gently on her shoulder, and looked her in the eye. "You okay?" She nodded, even though she wasn't. "I don't want to make a fuss, baby." "I know you don't," he said. "But I will." He turned to the staffer. "This is my mother. You just disrespected the most important person in this building." The woman opened her mouth, but no words came. She looked embarrassed now, flushed. Derek didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. He walked Gloria back to the SUV, opened the door for her himself, and helped her in. She reached for his arm before he closed the door. "Don't ruin your moment over me." He gave her a look. "You are the moment." Then he shut the door and walked back up those marble steps with a calmness that masked a deep fire brewing beneath. But what Derek did just hours later shook boardrooms, headlines, and families from coast to coast. You're listening to Real Stories Diary, and trust us, this is where the story takes a turn no one saw coming. Back inside the dining hall, Derek's seat sat untouched. The pen meant for signing the final agreement rested beside a thick packet of papers. Over a year of negotiations, revisions, and corporate alignment strategies, all leading up to this day. A champagne tower gleamed near the windows. Everything was in place, except Derek. The mood shifted the moment he returned. Not dramatically. There was no yelling, no angry declarations, just that heavy, tense quiet that follows a storm cloud no one dares point at. "Everything all right?" asked Preston Ward, Hathaway's general counsel. His voice held forced calm, the way a man speaks when he senses $1 million problem and doesn't know where it's coming from yet. Derek didn't answer right away. He looked around the room. The board members, the family, the lawyers. Then his gaze stopped at Victoria Hathaway. She was still sipping her wine, half turned in her chair, legs crossed like she hadn't even noticed the disruption. She wasn't just comfortable. She looked certain. Certain that this deal was already locked in. That money had smoothed out everything. He walked over to his chair, placed both hands on the back of it, and didn't sit. "I want to say something," he said. A few people looked up. The room didn't quiet. It froze. "You all know how much this deal meant. Not just for our companies, for the markets, for the next generation of tech infrastructure in this country. This merger would have changed everything." He paused, looking at every face one by one. "But I'm not signing it." There were 2 seconds of stillness. Then the voices started. Low murmurs, confusion, someone saying, "Wait, what?" Victoria's head turned now, not fast, but sharply enough to know she'd felt the slap in his words. "Excuse me," she said, almost a laugh. Derek nodded. "Excuse you indeed. Is this a negotiation tactic?" Preston tried. "Derek, if there's a concern, we can go back to the table." Derek finally sat down. Not in the signing chair, but the one at the far end, furthest from the paperwork. "No, there's no more table." Victoria scoffed, then leaned forward with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Let's not overreact to a simple misunderstanding. I didn't recognize the woman, that's all." He blinked once, slow. "That woman is my mother." "I'm aware of that now," she replied, trying to keep her voice cool. "But surely—" No, Derek cut her off, voice low, almost gentle. "You knew what you were doing. You said what you meant." Preston cleared his throat. "We've invested millions into prep. Both sides. There are legal implications here." Derek leaned back, unbothered. "Then I'll see you in court. You can explain to a judge why disrespecting my family was part of your strategy." "Don't be emotional," Victoria muttered. "That did it." He leaned forward again, folding his hands. "You think I built this company from a corner office? I loaded trucks, Victoria. I drove routes at 3 a.m. I ran payroll from a folding table when we couldn't afford an accountant. I watched my mother take the bus to clean houses so I could keep the lights on in our apartment. So when she shows up here, wearing her finest, proud as hell, and you humiliate her?" "You humiliate me?" No one said anything. Then Derek stood one last time. "There are deals you lose sleep over not signing. This isn't one of them." He walked out. No folder, no papers, no handshake, just silence. But by the next morning, silence wasn't an option for anyone involved. The media had already picked up the story, and they were hungry. The first outlet to run it was a small business podcast out of Philadelphia. A guest who'd attended the merger lunch leaked just enough. Black CEO walks out of $900 million deal after mother insulted by white billionaire family. That headline alone had enough fuel to burn. By noon, TechPulse, Forbes, and Business Today had picked it up. By 5, cable news anchors were already debating it. The story was everywhere, not because a deal fell through, but because of why it did. A camera caught Gloria Samuels walking into his downtown office in Newark the next morning. No sunglasses, no entourage, just him holding a coffee and nodding to the front desk receptionist like he always did. One reporter shouted, "Was the Hathaway comment the reason you canceled?" Another asked, "Do you regret walking away from $900 million?" He didn't answer. Not yet. Inside the building, his team had already been fielding non-stop calls. Some investors were confused, others were furious, but a surprising number were proud. Messages flooded their inboxes. Executives from other firms, warehouse workers, teachers, retired veterans, all saying the same thing: "Thank you for not letting that slide." That afternoon, Derek scheduled a press conference. No press kits, no staged backdrop, just a single podium, a folding table, and 20 reporters crammed into a conference room built for 10. He stepped up to the mic and looked tired but steady. "I didn't cancel the deal because of money," he began. "I canceled it because the second you allow disrespect into the room, it spreads. I wasn't raised that way, and I won't build a future on top of silence." A woman from CNBC asked if it was true that Victoria Hathaway had made the comment directly. Derek didn't flinch. "Yes, loud enough for people nearby to hear. Loud enough for my mother to feel it." "Some might say that's not a reason to walk away from a company-defining deal," another reporter chimed in. He nodded slowly. "Depends on what kind of company you're trying to define." The room fell quiet again. He didn't speak for long. He didn't need to. Respect isn't negotiable. And if we start trading that for contracts, then we've already lost. He stepped down, walked out just like he had the day before. But outside that conference room, the world had changed. And in places where people usually whispered, they were suddenly speaking loud. That same night, clips of his speech made it to TikTok, X, and YouTube. A former employee of the Hathaway family posted a story of being told to use the service elevator during a charity gala. A Ladings caterer shared how she'd once been asked to remove her apron before entering a front lobby for a setup. The thread got thousands of shares in hours. Derek hadn't planned any of it. He wasn't trying to start a movement, but sometimes all it takes is one person standing still for others to find their footing. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, the Hathaway Group was scrambling. In an emergency board meeting, Victoria's oldest son, Clinton Hathaway, who'd been mostly absent during negotiations, asked the question none of them wanted to face. "Do we have to issue an apology?" Victoria frowned. "I don't apologize to people who overreact." "You insulted the man's mother, Vic," someone snapped. "In public, during the deal signing. What did you think was going to happen?" "We've made comments worse than that to each other in this room," she argued. "And none of us lost a billion-dollar acquisition over it," Clinton muttered. But the numbers were shifting. Stockholders started asking questions. Brand analysts warned about reputation costs. Even their PR firm hesitated when asked to spin the narrative. That weekend, the Hathaway name took a hit. People remembered every story they'd heard and buried. Every encounter that didn't feel quite right. What had once been seen as old money class was now under a new lens, entitlement with a smile. But while the Hathaways scrambled to contain the fallout, Derek was about to face pressure of a different kind. This time, from inside his own circle. Inside the Newark headquarters, things weren't exactly peaceful either. Derek's decision had made him a symbol in the public eye. But symbols attract weight, pressure, scrutiny. Some of it came quietly behind closed doors. Some didn't. He met with his executive team in the upstairs conference room, a wide glass space overlooking Market Street. Most of them had been with him from the beginning, some since the warehouse days. But loyalty has layers, and not everyone was on the same page. Elliot Trammell, his CFO, was the first to speak up. "We need to talk about what this means long term. Not just this week, 6 months out. We had international infrastructure tied to this merger, Derek." "I know," Derek replied, calm. "We're looking at legal backlash," Elliot continued. "Hathaway is already drafting breach claims. Their lawyers are saying you killed the deal for personal reasons." "It wasn't personal," Derek said. "It was principle." "But can we afford principle right now?" asked Julian Ricks, his COO. "We're barely a Series C company." "You think the board's not going to panic?" Derek looked at Julian, eyes steady. "Let them." That shut the room up for a moment. Then Nia Whitlow, head of marketing, leaned forward. "Derek, I support your decision. I really do. But you've got to understand, you became a headline, a symbol. People are calling you the man who walked away from generational wealth to protect his mother. That comes with heat. You're now the guy who said no to $1 billion because someone insulted his mom in public. I said no to being owned, Derek corrected. I get that, Nia said. But if you don't take control of the narrative, someone else will fast. Elliot added, we're seeing it already. Some investors are nervous. I had 2 calls this morning. They want assurances. They want a plan. Derek stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city looked ordinary. Traffic moved. A mother walked her kid across the street, holding his hand tight. He thought of Gloria, how small she looked on those marble steps in Greenwich. How tall she stood. Anyway, he said finally, I'm not going to teach people that power means swallowing everything. Not here. Not in my company, and not for a check. Julian leaned back, frustrated. Okay, but what if we collapse because of this? Then we rebuild, Derek said. But at least we don't rot from the inside. There was silence after that. And then something unexpected happened. Nia nodded. Then Elliot. And finally, Julian gave a reluctant shrug. We'll hold, Elliot said. For now. They didn't all agree. Not fully. But something shifted in the room. Maybe respect. Maybe fear. Maybe both. But outside those walls, not everyone was as ready to stand beside him, especially those who'd been betting on the payout. 2 days later, Derek's phone buzzed. A message from Theron Ingram, his cousin and co-founder. One line, we need to talk face to face. They met at a diner in West Orange, same booth where they'd once sketched their first business plan on napkins. Theron arrived early, already sitting with coffee when Derek slid in across from him. I heard from Monroe Bank this morning, Theron said, not wasting time. They're pausing our credit line, the one we were going to use to scale West Coast operations. Derek nodded. I figured they might. Theron stared. You figured? Derek, we were right there. This wasn't some random buyout. This was our generational leap. Our kids' future. And I wasn't going to let that future be built on my mother's humiliation, Derek replied. Theron shook his head, eyes hard. You ever think maybe that was her fight to pick? Not yours? Derek leaned in. She wasn't fighting. She was being stepped on. Theron sighed. This isn't the same as back in Trenton. You made a decision for all of us without asking. And now people are saying you did it for clout. I did it because I was raised not to sell my name for a seat at someone else's table. Theron sat back, lips tight. Your lucky folks see you as a hero. You'd better hope that lasts. Derek stood, tossing it $20 on the table. If it doesn't, I'll still sleep fine. But deep down, even Derek knew. The real storm hadn't hit yet. Not until the Hathaways made their next move. The Hathaway estate in Greenwich was built like a fortress, stone walls, antique iron gates, and hedges trimmed like they were in military formation. Inside the main study, the family gathered around a long mahogany table. The air was stiff. No one dared sip the wine that had been poured. Victoria Hathaway sat at the head, her fingers clasped under her chin, expression unreadable. Clinton, her eldest, was pacing. Bradley scrolled through his phone, visibly nervous. The only one who spoke with ease was Ella Lenina Wynn, their crisis PR manager. We need to issue a statement, she said. Something short. Acknowledging the incident, expressing regret, emphasizing your shared values. Victoria scoffed. What values? That woman looked like she didn't belong. That's not my fault. Ella Lenina blinked once, slowly. You just said that out loud in front of your children while I'm here trying to protect your legacy. Clinton stopped pacing. Mom, Derek's walking away has already tanked interest in our tech sector portfolio. Do you understand how bad this is? He'll come back, she said confidently. They always do. Pride fades when the money runs dry. Elenina shut her binder with a snap. You don't get it. This isn't about the deal anymore. This is cultural. He struck a chord. Bradley looked up from his phone. People are calling him a hero, Mom. They're reposting that speech, quoting him like he's some civil rights icon. Victoria waved a hand. They'll forget by next week. Clinton looked at her like she was an old painting cracking at the edges. They won't. You've become the symbol of elitist racism in every podcast and headline right now. And you haven't even said sorry. I'm not apologizing for having standards. Then we're done, Clinton said flatly. You've already cost us one deal. I'm not letting you cost us the entire family business. She turned slowly to look at him. You're going to side with them? No, he said, voice firm. I'm siding with reality. The room was silent again. Victoria's empire, built on carefully curated polish and control, was wobbling because all the press releases in the world couldn't erase that moment on the terrace, her voice, that tone, and the look on Gloria Samuels' face. Eventually, the Hathaways released a statement. It was bland, cold, full of legal language and generic regret. The Hathaway Group regrets the recent miscommunication that led to the premature end of the merger. We continue to uphold values of inclusion and mutual respect. Derek didn't respond publicly, but his silence said more than any post could. Instead, he kept building. By now, journalists had dug into his background. Photos of young Derek delivering packages in Newark. A quote from a former teacher who remembered him staying after class to study business books. One clip from a podcast resurfaced, him saying, "I'm not trying to be in anyone's club. I'm trying to build my own house." Meanwhile, Gloria had become a figure in her own right. She appeared briefly on Morning Update, sitting in a simple chair, hands in her lap. I didn't ask for attention, she said. But I raised my son to speak when silence costs too much. The host asked if she would have preferred he signed the deal anyway. She smiled, soft but firm. Some money comes with chains. I'm too old to wear chains. The clip went viral. Influencers stitched it. Young entrepreneurs quoted it on panels, and quietly, companies started pulling out of Hathaway partnerships, not because of Derek, but because of what Victoria had come to represent. In an era where reputation travels faster than fact, perception becomes reality, and reality was shifting. Still, Derek didn't gloat. He went to work, met with partners, hired more staff, and visited his mother every Sunday, bringing her gardenias and banana pudding from the same bakery she loved in Trenton. But just when things seemed to be stabilizing, an unexpected phone call would pull Derek right back into the spotlight. This time, not for what he'd walked away from, but for what someone else had dug up. The call came just after 8 p.m. on a Wednesday. Derek was alone in his office, working through projections. The building was mostly dark, cleaning crews moving quietly through the lower floors. He almost didn't answer when he saw the number, blocked caller, but something told him to pick up. Mr. Samuels, the voice was sharp, a little raspy, like it belonged to someone who'd smoked for decades but only just quit. I'm not calling for trouble. I'm calling because you need to know what they're trying to do. Derek sat up. Who is this? I worked with the Hathaways for 15 years. I was on their legal acquisition team. You're not the first name they've tried to erase when it didn't suit them. Erase? They're preparing a countersuit, the voice continued. They're digging into your early filings, your first funding rounds, trying to frame you as unstable. They want to make you look volatile, unpredictable, say you brought politics into business and ruined shareholder value. They're hoping people will forget why you walked away in the first place. Derek leaned back, staring out the tall window. And why are you telling me? Because I've seen this before. They destroy, then deny. You made the mistake of embarrassing them in public. They'll try to bury you quietly. The line clicked dead. Derek sat there, unmoving. He knew the Hathaways played hardball, but it was war. And it wouldn't stop at his name. They'd aim at his reputation, his team, even his mother if they had to. He called Nia Whitlow the next morning. "They're coming after you," she said, unsurprised, after he relayed the call. Victoria doesn't lose quietly. She's going to weaponize your story and flip the narrative. Make it seem like you're the aggressor. Let her try, Derek replied. But Nia was already thinking 5 steps ahead. We need to show people who you are before she tells them who you're not. She got to work. Within 48 hours, a new media campaign launched. No slogans, no drama, just real stories. Warehouse workers recorded testimonials. Investors talked about Derek's transparency during tough quarters. Former interns posted videos of how he mentored them without cameras or hashtags. But the most powerful video came from Gloria. Seated in her small living room, she looked straight at the camera and said, "I didn't raise my son to be a businessman. I raised him to be a man. A man who stands when standing means losing something." It landed like a thunderclap. Cable news couldn't ignore it. The hashtags trended again, and suddenly the Hathaway strategy, subtle discrediting, veiled accusations, started to look like what it really was: bitterness. Still, they didn't stop. A week later, Hathaway Group released documents suggesting Derek had violated early partnership clauses during a 2018 deal with Stratus Line Logistics. It was supposed to imply he had a history of cutting ties abruptly, but Stratus CEO, Leonard Greer, went on the record the same day. "Derek left our deal because he refused to approve wage cuts for our drivers. I wish I'd done the same. It backfired. Again." The narrative was slipping out of the Hathaway family's grip, and every attempt to regain control only magnified the original wound, one they still refused to acknowledge or apologize for. Inside the Hathaway home, Victoria was beginning to feel the walls close in. Contracts evaporated. Event invites disappeared. A museum board rescinded her honorary seat. But Victoria didn't blame herself. Not once. "It's a fad," she snapped at Clinton over breakfast. Social media outrage. "It'll fade." Clinton wasn't sure anymore. "It's not fading, Mother. It's building. Because you never once said you were wrong." She sipped her coffee like the conversation bored her. "And I won't." He stood. "Then the family business doesn't need you anymore." She didn't respond. But for the first time, her hands trembled just slightly. But while the Hathaways were losing ground, Derek was about to face a moment of truth, one that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with legacy. Derek stood in his mother's backyard in Trenton, watching her clip basil from the small planter box they'd built together 2 summers ago. The sun was low, casting a soft orange glow on the grass, and Gloria wore one of her older church dresses, faded at the seams, but still neatly pressed. She didn't say much, just moved slowly, methodically, like the weight of the last few weeks hadn't touched her. But Derek knew better. "Mom," he said, not looking directly at her. "You all right with all this attention?" She didn't look up. "Attention don't bother me. But I know what comes with it." "What do you mean?" Gloria snipped another leaf, placing it gently into the bowl resting on her hip. "They don't like it when we walk out of the room with our heads high. Makes them feel small. So they try to make you feel smaller." He sat down on the porch steps. "They're still trying, still spinning it like I blew up the deal over nothing." She finally looked at him. "You know it wasn't nothing. And anyone who says that don't know the cost of respect." He nodded, silent for a beat. "I'm still upset," he said. "Feels like I took something from the family." Gloria walked over, lowering herself onto the steps beside him. "Baby, every family's got their storm. But if you bend in the middle of it, what do you hand down to the ones after you?" "I just wanted to protect you," he said, his voice softening. "And you did," she replied. "But it wasn't just about me. It was about what you represent now. Don't run from that." Derek sat with her words. Later that night, back at his apartment in Jersey City, he watched a news segment replay footage from his press conference. He didn't like hearing himself on camera. Too polished, too deliberate. That wasn't how he grew up speaking. But now the world listened to every word like it was a statement of policy. His phone buzzed. It was a text from Leonard Greer, Stratus CEO. DC Council wants to speak with you. They're building a panel around ethical business practices. You'd be leading it. Derek stared at the screen. He never asked for this. He just wanted to build something that lasted, something honest. But now his story was turning into something bigger, something louder. And with that came pressure he hadn't planned for. The next morning, he met with Nia and Julian again. This time, the energy in the room had shifted. There were no raised voices, just tired eyes and long exhales. Julian spoke first. We've stabilized. That's the good news. Nia followed. And the noise is helping, actually, not hurting. 3 mid-sized logistics firms want to partner with us. Quietly, but still. Because we stood for something, Derek said. Because you stood for something, Nia corrected him. He paused. And now they want me to speak for it. Lead panels, sit on committees, be the face of some new movement. Maybe that's what comes next, Julian said. You've already built the business. Now build the voice. But Derek looked unsure. He'd never wanted to be a symbol. Symbols are heavy. People worship them or tear them down. And neither felt like a life he wanted. But he also knew silence had its price. He picked up a dry erase marker and started sketching on the wallboard. Numbers, timelines, expansion plans. Nothing flashy, just the next phase of growth. Let's scale without them, he said. Let's prove we never needed that deal in the first place. Nia smiled. Now that's the Derek I remember. Julian chuckled. Took you long enough to show back up. But Derek wasn't done. He pointed at the calendar. And next week, I want to hold something here. Not a press conference, a real event. Warehouse crew, interns, junior staff, food, music. Remind everyone who we are. Like a community day? Nia asked. No, like a family reunion. The kind where everyone gets a plate, no matter where they came from. But before he could pull that together, a final letter would arrive, one that had nothing to do with the Hathaways, yet would shake him just as deeply. The envelope was thin, off-white, no return address, just Derek's name, typed clean across the center. It arrived through regular mail, mixed in with invoices and vendor proposals. He didn't notice it at first, didn't even open it until hours later when the office had cleared out, and the cleaning crew was humming somewhere down the hall. The letter inside was handwritten, neat cursive, every loop and curve careful, like the writer had practiced before putting pen to paper. Mr. Samuels, you don't know me, but I know who you are. My father was the groundskeeper at Hathaway Ridge from 1985 until he died in 2009. He raised me and my 2 sisters on that job. Woke up before the sun. Never complained. Taught us to be proud even when we were invisible. I saw your story on the news, and I cried. Not because I was surprised by what happened to your mother, because I wasn't, but because for once someone said no and meant it. You reminded me of my father. He never had your platform, but he had your spine. I just wanted you to know not everyone forgets where they came from or who they stand up for. With deep respect, Camille Pierce. Derek read it twice, then folded it slowly and set it on the desk. That name, Camille Pierce, stirred something. He dug through his inbox, checking for it. Nothing. No emails, no LinkedIn hits, just the letter. Later that night, he told his mother about it over dinner. She said her father was the groundskeeper, he said, pushing greens around on his plate. She said I reminded her of him. Gloria looked thoughtful. Funny how truth reaches you. Doesn't matter the route. It finds you. Derek nodded, but didn't speak. He didn't need to. The letter had landed like a weight in his chest, not heavy with regret, but with meaning. He carried so much responsibility now. It felt good to know his choice had reached someone who'd lived in the shadow of that same gate for decades. The next day, he asked Nia to find Camille. Quietly. She called 2 days later. Found her. Teaches 4th grade in Harrisburg. Doesn't do social media. Lives in a small apartment with a rescue dog. She didn't expect you to write back. I want to visit her, Derek said. Should I call ahead? No. I'll knock. 2 days later, he stood on a small stoop in Harrisburg, holding a paper bag from a local bakery and feeling something he rarely felt anymore, nervous. Camille opened the door after the second knock. She looked mid-40s, brown ponytail, wearing jeans and a school district sweatshirt. When she saw him, she froze. I'm Derek, he said. And this is banana bread. Thought you might be tired of everyone only wanting something from you. Camille blinked, then let out a breathy laugh. Come in before my dog tries to eat you. Inside, the apartment was warm, lived in. A framed photo of an older man in work boots sat on the mantel. Derek walked over and looked at it closely. Your father? She nodded. He worked that estate like it was his own. I know the type. Camille offered tea, and they sat. She told him about her father, how he refused to call the Hathaways sir and ma'am, how he saved every check, how he taught her to read using contracts and invoices he brought home. He'd have liked you, she said. Not because you made it big, but because you knew when to walk away. They spoke for 2 hours. Nothing recorded, no hashtags, just two people connected by a shared history neither had asked for, but both had carried in their bones. When Derek left, she handed him a copy of an old photo, her dad standing under a tall oak, rake in hand, a quiet pride in his eyes. For when the world gets loud again, she said. He thanked her, tucked the photo into his jacket pocket, and walked back to his car. Because sometimes the most powerful reminders don't come from headlines. They come from handwritten words in old oak trees. And Derek was about to face one final moment that would test whether everything he'd stood for could hold up under personal loss. It started with a voicemail from the nurse, just a gentle request to call back. Nothing urgent, she said. Gloria had fainted briefly while at her weekly Bible study. They'd brought her to Capital Care Medical Center in Trenton, just to be safe. Derek didn't wait. He left a meeting mid-sentence, grabbed his keys, and drove the turnpike with his jaw locked tight. When he arrived, Gloria was sitting up in the hospital bed, looking mildly annoyed and sipping ginger ale like she had better places to be. I told them I just stood too fast, she said as he walked in. Didn't need all this fuss. But Derek could see it in her eyes. The fatigue, the way her hand trembled slightly as she set the cup down. He sat beside her quietly, holding her wrist gently in his hand. What did the doctor say? He asked. That I need to slow down, take my iron pills, eat more greens. Same thing I tell you. He smiled at that, but it didn't settle the knot in his chest. A few minutes later, Dr. Maylin entered the room. Young, sharp, direct, but with a kind face. She glanced at Gloria before speaking softly to Derek. Your mother's vitals stabilized quickly, but we'd like to run one more test. Her blood pressure is fluctuating more than we'd like to see. She hasn't had a full cardiac workup in a while. Gloria waved it off. I feel fine. Derek nodded. Run the test. Over the next 2 days, the results came in. Nothing dire, no ticking time bomb, but small flags, a leaky valve, mild arrhythmia, iron deficiency. Nothing urgent, but also nothing to ignore. The message was clear, life doesn't wait forever. That night, as they sat together watching reruns of Sanford and Son in her hospital room, Gloria spoke without looking away from the screen. You've done good, baby. He chuckled. Did you just call me baby in front of the nurse? I brought you into this world. I get to call you baby. He smiled but didn't laugh. Not fully. I'm not done yet. I know, she said, but don't wait too long to live. That landed differently. He looked at her. Really looked. The deep lines carved by time and sacrifice. The woman who never asked for a stage but somehow became the heart of a national story. "I've been thinking," he said, "about what you told me about legacy, about not handing down silence." She turned her head to him. "I want to start something," he continued. "A foundation for workers, drivers, warehouse crews, their families. Real support, health screenings, childcare, tuition stipends. Not just write-ups and workshops. Action." Gloria's mouth curved slowly into a proud smile. "That sounds like you. I want to name it after you." Now her eyes welled, even if she tried to hide it with a cough. "You don't need to do that." "I do," Derek said, "because you built me." A few weeks later, the Gloria Initiative was announced. It wasn't flashy. No red carpet, no press tour, just a website, a launch video, and partnerships with 3 nonprofits to start. It caught fire. Local news picked it up, then national. And in a matter of weeks, the conversation shifted again from confrontation to construction, from calling out broken rooms to building better ones. At the first Community Day event, Derek stood at a long folding table under a white tent. Food trucks lined the lot. Kids ran between face painters and book drives, and workers who'd once feared losing jobs now stood with families eating barbecue and talking about the future. He took the mic briefly. "I turned down $900 million. People said I was crazy, but this right here, this is worth more than any check." The crowd applauded, but it wasn't thunderous. It was warm, real. Later that evening, as the sun set and the lot slowly emptied, Derek looked up at the sky and thought of Camille's father, of his cousin Theron, of the Hathaway boardroom, of the look on his mother's face when he walked her out of that country club. Everything that followed, that storm, had led him here. But just as he was starting to feel like he'd found peace, one final message would arrive. Not in ink or headlines, but from a voice he hadn't heard in years. A voice tied to a part of his past he thought he'd already buried. It came through voicemail. No warning, just a blinking notification on Derek's phone after a full day of meetings and interviews. He tapped the icon absent-mindedly as he walked through the front door of his apartment, expecting it to be a reminder from Julian or maybe a vendor follow-up. But the second he heard the voice, he froze. "Derek, it's Dwayne." "Yeah. I wasn't sure you'd still have this number, but I heard about what you did with the deal, with your mother. And I just had to reach out." Dwayne, his father's brother, the one who hadn't called in over 20 years, the one who'd vanished the night they lowered his father into the ground. No goodbye, no explanation, just silence. "I saw you on the news. Your mama raised you right. No surprise there. I'm proud of you, and I'm sorry for a lot. If you ever want to talk, this is my number now." The message ended. No second call. No follow-up text. Derek stood still, keys still in hand, staring at the now dark screen. His mind swirled. He hadn't thought about Dwayne in years. When his father died of a heart attack at 49, it was Dwayne who stood next to him at the casket, promising, "I got you." Then nothing. Derek remembered waking up on his 13th birthday, hoping for a card. A call. It never came. He poured a glass of water and sat at the kitchen counter, listening again. The voice was older now, slower. But it was him. That night, he couldn't sleep. Memories came back fast and sharp, his dad fixing the water heater on a cold morning, grease on his hands, Dwayne bringing over ribs in foil every 4th of July. Then the silence, like someone had closed a door and forgotten to tell him. In the morning, Gloria called. "I heard from Dwayne," she said without waiting for small talk. Derek's grip tightened on the phone. "He called you. Left a message yesterday. Same as he did with you, I'm guessing. I don't know what he wants." "Maybe nothing," she said. "Maybe he's trying to make peace while he still has time." "I'm not sure I need peace with him." She was quiet for a moment. "Baby, sometimes peace ain't for them. It's for you." That line stuck. Later that day, he replayed the voicemail again, and this time he didn't feel anger. He felt tired, like a part of him had been holding something up for too long. He waited until evening, then picked up the phone and called back. 3 rings, then a click. Derek, the voice asked, cautious but hopeful. Yeah, it's me. A long pause, then a small laugh. You sound just like your father. I get that a lot. Neither spoke right away. Then Dwayne sighed. I'm not calling to explain away the silence. I was a coward. After your dad passed, I couldn't look at anything that reminded me of him. And you? You were a mirror. Derek said nothing. I left because it was easier than staying in failing you. I didn't need you to succeed, Derek said quietly. I just needed you to stay. Dwayne's voice cracked. I know. I know I let you down. They spoke for 15 more minutes. Not about business. Not about betrayal. About fishing trips. About Derek's high school football days. About how Dwayne had been following his career from the sidelines, quietly. When they hung up, Derek didn't feel closure, but he felt lighter. Later that week, he mentioned the call at a team retreat. Forgiveness isn't approval, he told his staff. It's just refusing to let bitterness take up all your space. People nodded. Some smiled, and a few understood more deeply than they showed. As Derek left the venue that evening, a young intern caught up to him. Mr. Samuels, she said, breathless. I wanted to thank you. My dad always told me that no one in business ever sticks to their morals, that it's just about money. You proved him wrong. He smiled. No, my mother did. And as he walked back to his car, head high, heart clear, Derek finally understood. Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you live through and what you refuse to let die in silence. That's the story of Derek and Gloria Samuels, a story of standing tall when the world expects you to bow. If this moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to follow Real Stories Diary for more stories that hit deep and lift high. Until next time, keep standing for what matters.